You, Jamie, as always. Let's start by getting your reflections on their start to the tournament then. It was quite an entertaining win over Croatia, would you say? What did you make of it?
Well, I think it was an awkward first half, I would say. But I thought the second half was fantastic. Over that first 20, 30 minutes of the second half, it was like watching a great Premier League game, really, or one of the best teams in our league, just taking the opposition to the sword, really, and, putting the game to bed. And the more I watch the game, the more I look at the squad that Thomas Tuchel's picked, it all feels like he's built it like someone will be thinking about playing in the Premier League rather than an international tournament. And he's left a lot of technical players out, as we've always been told that we always need in these tournaments, to try and go on and win it, or to, keep the ball in stifling conditions. But when you actually watch that second half, it was an end-to-end game. It was full of intensity. And, it felt very reminiscent of Premier League games that we watch.
Yeah, I hear you. Declan Rice, who was integral to it, has been struggling with this injury, though, hasn't he, for quite a bit of the season. Would you rest him for this game against Ghana, or is now not the time to do that?
No, you don't rest him on a World Cup. Listen, if England could win the next game, and maybe you'd look to do that in the third game if they were guaranteed top spots. But no, I don't think you're in a situation where you're resting Declan Rice. And I'm not quite sure what the injury was. I seen an interview with Declan a day or so ago, and he said he's absolutely fine. I think it was more precautionary than too much of an injury, really. It seems to me like he's fine. It's something that he's been carrying for a lot of the season. But listen, he's been one of the best players in the league. For me, he would have been PFA Player of the Year if I was still a player and picking that role. So no, it hasn't affected him too much at all playing for Arsenal, and probably the right decision to bring him off. Make sure he's 100% fit for this game. But if needs be, get this game won out the way and maybe rest him against Panama.
Jamie, just talk to us about fatigue, though, because, he's one of a few players, actually, that have played over 60 games this season, certainly Arsenal players. How much of a factor do you think that might have as we get to the knockout stages of this tournament?
It's a factor for every player. It is, and that's been something that's been thrown at England for so long in squads I was with, that, we don't have the winter break. Players, I think, certainly in our league, I think it's probably a little bit more competitive in terms of there's more, I think, teams who think they can win the biggest prize, maybe in terms of the Premier League, rather than what we'd say maybe in Germany. And hopefully that bodes well for Harry Kane in the tournament. But this is something that affects a lot of players. I don't think it's English players, but maybe us a little bit more than most because of the nature and the intensity of the Premier League. And also, as I said, we don't have a winter break.
Yeah, we don't yet. Look, Rice's Arsenal teammate, Bukayo Saka, he did start the game, didn't he, on the bench? So he is recovering from this injury as well. He's recovering well. Obviously, I'm assuming you're going to say the same. He's another player that shouldn't be risked at this stage of the tournament. You'd disagree with that, wouldn't you?
Well, it sounds to me the fact that he didn't start the first game, that it means it's probably a little bit more serious than what Declan Rice has got. He did miss a lot of football. I don't know if there's a lot, but he was certainly out for a time last season, whereas I don't remember Declan Rice ever really being injured, to be honest. So it looks like his is a little bit more of a problem for him. And I don't think you do risk it because you don't want to lose someone from the tournament. But the longer the tournament goes on without him starting a game, it's very difficult then to expect him maybe to just come into the knockout games and be at his absolute best. So I think the longer, either way, he's in the team, and if he starts the next game and it goes well, it might be difficult for Bukayo to get back just because of the nature of a tournament. It's only 6 or 7 games, even if you go right to the end. And he probably may not be at his sharpest or as fittest or as best if he has a few weeks off right now. So, but it's certainly not one to take a risk with because, as I said, once that tournament starts, you can't afford to lose a player now and, to be out the squad.
Yeah. What about the Anthony Gordon-Marcus Rashford debate then? The last time we spoke, you felt Gordon should start on the left side of the attack. What about Rashford? Has he done enough to earn a starting place for you?
Yeah, I think that role is a definite toss-up. I think most positions in the team, maybe at centre-back as well, might be a similar sort of thing to what we're talking about here on the left wing. But I think most positions in the team is all most people would agree on. I think left wing is a little bit of a toss-up, and maybe on the back of what happened in the first game, a lot of people now would opt for Marcus Rashford. But as we all know as players in the game, simply attacking players it's a lot easier to make an impact coming off the bench with 20 minutes to go. There's a lot more space there, you're fresher. Game becomes end-to-end as well. But I think whoever the manager picks, I don't think it sort of makes a drastic difference, really. So they're both battling for England places. They've both been fighting for a place at Barcelona. Anthony Gordon won that one. Anthony Gordon won the battle to start the first England game. But I think maybe Marcus Rashford may get the start in the next game. But again, there is talk of him carrying something as well. So maybe the manager will just go with the the player who's 100% fit and use Marcus from the bench again.
Yeah, it's a nice option to have, though, isn't it? I mean, two fantastic players in good form at the moment. Let's talk about the defence then, because everyone's talking about that, the fact that they conceded twice against Croatia. What did you make of the balance of it? Did Tuchel get it right first from the off?
Well, for me, the first player who would be in the back four would be Marc Guéhi. So I was surprised that he didn't play. I was worried about John Stones and the amount of football he's had, not even just in the last few weeks, I'm talking in the last couple of years. I mean, to expect someone to come into a World Cup and perform at his absolute best, I'm not quite sure about that one. But he gives you something different than the other two do, probably more out-and-out defenders. John Stones got great experience as well. But if you do bring John Stones, you're bringing him to play. Otherwise, there's no point bringing him to sit on the bench. But for me, Marc Guéhi will be playing, I think, and I'd probably give John Stones another go, and try and sort of maybe kind of get up to speed, because John Stones looks the way he looks at the moment because he hasn't played enough football. So as I said, if you're going to bring him, you've got to play him, and hopefully by the time you get to the really big games and the knockout stage, he's got 2 or 3 90 minutes under his belt and he looks a lot better.
What about Djed Spence then? Because he did well when he came on, didn't he? Do you think he'll have an important part to play as well? Of course, his job will be to mark Semenyo.
Yeah, but I mean, we look at sort of Reece James. I don't think there's any debate about who the best right back in the country is. He's arguably one of the best right backs in the world when you see the right backs in this competition. Djed Spence, yes, listen, he came on and made a real impact. He almost scored a goal, lightning quick, lightning pace. And Tuchel really likes him. He's one of those players, Djed Spence, who gets a little bit of it, not so much criticism, but maybe raised eyebrows, the fact that he was in the squad ahead of certain other players. But there's no doubt, I think he's brought him in the squad for a specific job. And I think once we get to the knockout stages, and it may be the case when you're talking about coming up against Semenyo, when he's up against the top winger, I think he could be put in the team, whether at right back or left back, if you're coming up against Spain, for instance, with Yamal or something like that. I think he's in for a specific job to make sure he just stops the opposition's best player or great winger.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Djed Spence has said that he's got a special relationship with Tuchel. I think he told him to wake up, didn't he, when he was in that warm-up game. How do you feel about that when you can hear what your manager's saying on the touchline? Does that make you feel more nervous, or is that what you expect from your manager?
No, that's normal. I think every player works out what the manager's like. Every manager's got his own style. I think we know now, don't we, that Thomas Tuchel's very much on the front foot. He's not too worried about what he says, whether that's on the pitch to the players or in press conferences, and I think we quite like that as well. Anthony Barry, his assistant, was very much of the same ilk, really, when he was speaking at half-time. So they're very blunt, straight to the message, and that's what you need. You've got to be decisive in a tournament. It'll be over before you know it. It's not a season of 50, 60 games. It's a 4 or 5 weeks, 5 or 6 games, and as I said, you can't leave no stone unturned. And right now, it looks like we've got a manager who is very good at that.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? You say it's going to be over before you know it. How soon, though? Because I spoke to you before and you didn't make me feel very good about everything, Jamie. You're very grounded, saying, you don't necessarily see them as the winners of this tournament. Do you have any more belief right now?
Not particularly, because I think there's been a lot of really good performances from a lot of teams. I think the World Cup's been brilliant. I think the star players have lit it up. I think there's been great performances. And we're getting carried away, as we should, with our one game. But as I said, a lot of other teams have put in really good performances as well. And I think we shouldn't forget the first half against Croatia, not just because we conceded a couple of goals. Things can happen in games, but it was a little bit awkward, the performance. And the reason we're probably getting a bit excited is basically on from minute 45 to probably 75. It looked fantastic. So we're basing a lot of it around a brilliant half an hour of football, really. And that's why I said I don't think we should probably get too carried away, but we're in a great position in terms of the group. If we can go and top that group, I don't know how beneficial that'll be going forward, because there's a lot of teams as well, or groups maybe not looking what we thought at the beginning and who would be top, who would win the group. So I'm not 100% sure we were getting the run that we expected before the tournament, and that could cause a problem in itself. So let's just enjoy what we're doing now, get these two group games out the way, and then once we get to the knockout stage and we can see the run that we're potentially on, then maybe we can start getting a little bit excited. But it could be a really tough, as I said, last 32 or last 16 game. That, you know, if England go out, people are saying it's a poor tournament, but sometimes it's the nature of the opposition that you're up against as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. OK, so who has stood out for you? I mean, is it the usual suspects then, or is it Cape Verde's to lose, do you feel?
Well, listen, I just can't stop just raving about the tournament, because I just didn't expect it. I expected a little bit of what we saw last summer in the Club World Cup, where sort of maybe there was games not even, you know, not so much finishing, but having long breaks because of the weather. I thought the amount of teams there would be a problem, and that still may be a problem in terms of when we get to the third group stage game. But I thought a lot of games would be 0-0 and 1-0, just because the heat and the conditions, and it'd be difficult to play, and the players would find it tough. But there's been so many goals. I don't know what the record is for the, you know, how many goals has been scored in a World Cup, but it feels like a throwback to when I was a kid, when it felt like all the best players were playing great. There was lots of goals. I'm waking up in the morning, you see more goals going in as well. And yeah, I just think it's been a brilliant tournament so far, and England have played a huge part in it. But listen, the usual suspects, I think, what the final was last year in terms of Argentina and France. You know, you look at Mbappe, you're looking at Messi. They've started fantastically well. I hope that does continue, because it makes a great World Cup. But I definitely think at this point that we're in now, there's probably 3 or 4 teams who have probably just got the edge on England. But as I said, that can all change.